So if you've explored astrology to any depth, then chances are you have encountered the fact that there are multiple zodiac systems. So there's the tropical, which is the mainstream system. Western astrology is commonly based off of the tropical zodiac, but we also have the sidereal zodiac, which is what Vedic astrology uses. So if you see a Vedic astrologer, chances are they're operating off of some branch of the sidereal zodiac. And then there's a new emerging branch, it's becoming more well known. It's called the True Sidereal zodiac, or I also call it constellation-based astrology. And if you have gone to different websites and calculators and put in your birth chart and you get different signs for your planetary placements, it is because each one of these systems calculates the zodiac differently in our sky. And that can definitely bring up a lot of confusion. I had an identity crisis. It really kind of tears the foundation out from underneath you around what, if you're just someone who likes astrology, listens to astrology, but hasn't necessarily gone deep in it, it can just kind of like rip the foundation from underneath you, because you're like, how can I have, for example, in the tropical zodiac, I have a Virgo moon. In the True Sidereal and Sidereal systems, I have a Leo moon. So I went through this whole chapter where I almost like called BS on astrology altogether, because I was like, how can you be two different signs? It doesn't make sense. And fortunately, I just still had such a passion for it. Obviously, because I turned it into my profession. I've been a professional astrologer for 3 years, which is why I really understand this system now, or the differences here. And I'm just going to hopefully save you a lot of mental confusion and identity crisis, and in sharing these different systems in a way that just allows you to understand why your planetary placements change and which one is correct, which one's more accurate. So the first I want you to look at the zodiac as the real estate in the sky, almost like states or districts or countries, however you might want to look at them. But in the same way that, as time has gone on here on Earth, boundaries have shifted. Even just looking at the United States, like the state boundaries have changed over time based off of history and things that have happened. And they haven't stayed the same. And that is exactly what's happened with the real estate of the sky, the zodiac. And I also want to say, too, just to add a little bit more depth to your understanding of astrology, what the zodiac is. Technically, there are 88 constellations in our solar system. And this is like the 360-degree, sky that's all around. If you look all around all the constellations that you can see, there are 88 constellations total. The 12 to 13 to maybe even more, depending on the astrologer you see, that is included in the zodiac are the constellations along the ecliptic plane. So if my head is the Earth, there's this ecliptic plane that all of the planets pass along with relative similarity. This single kind of flat plane that is actually correlated with the sun as well. But actually, I should say it's more correlated with the sun. But these are the constellations, the zodiac, the ecliptic plane, the zodiacal belt, all the same terms. Are what we see the planets pass along in the sky. So as the star watchers, the ancient star watchers, they would see Saturn, move across, Saturn being actually the last planet we can visibly see with our eyes. Maybe Venus would be a better example. We would see Venus move along the constellation of Aries into Taurus and then into Gemini, and the planets pass along these constellations that are known as the zodiac. And the boundaries of the zodiac are what differ between these systems. And they just all have a different base of calculation. And for the average astrology, person who's interested in astrology and learning their chart, there's the precession of the equinox, which is a huge point for actually both the true constellation-based astrology and Vedic astrology, sidereal astrology. Like that's a point that causes differentiation between the tropical zodiac. And there are these reasons that at the end of the day, I don't think necessarily matter if you're just someone exploring your chart on this kind of general level. What's important to know, and why like when you're working with a different plate, like a Leo to Virgo difference in one of your planetary placements, or even your ascendant, obviously that can change, and descendant, and these just points, your midheaven, can all change zodiac signs. I want to bring us back to the analogy of how, the states in the United States have changed over time. Like the boundaries have shifted because such regulation was put into place, or there was a war and so won and whatever. If you were to walk across the two states, or even drive, if you're going to drive from, Arizona to New Mexico, let's say, the terrain doesn't just immediately change like when you leave Arizona and get into New Mexico. It's not like, oh, Arizona looks so different and here's New Mexico, it looks so different. If you're driving across the state into another state, the terrain, the territory is this gradual shift of energy. In fact, if you didn't know that there was a boundary there between Arizona and New Mexico, you'd have been like, oh, this is like similar to the last mile I just drove, and oh look, it's similar to the mile I'm going to. There's this gradual evolution of energy, and that's what I want you to realize, is that we get so stuck in fixed expressions of these signs, like this is what Leo is and this is what Virgo is, that we really miss, and unless you study astrology on a deeper level, that there is a gradual evolution of energy from Leo into Virgo. And we do need to draw boundaries. Like we do need to know like where the Virgo jurisdiction begins and ends and where Leo begins and ends. But the truth of it is, as Leo turns into Virgo, there is this expression that is mixed between these two zodiac signs that a professional astrologer is familiar with and understands, that like the farther ends of Leo is a different expression than the beginning degrees of Leo. And so as I've explored, it's almost like summer just doesn't turn into fall overnight. We see a gradual evolution of energy. The same thing happens with the zodiac. We see it all over nature. It's not just a black and white change. A kitten just doesn't become a cat. It's a gradual evolution, a gradual change. And so when your signs change between these systems, I want you to think about how, okay, so yeah, one system is landing me in Virgo and one's in Leo, but perhaps like what's really being communicated to me right now is there's this mix of this energy, this degree of difference that I am experiencing, like a little bit of Virgo and a little bit of Leo. And that is exactly how it has felt in my own life. It's almost like I can see the Leo, I can see the Virgo, and it is this interesting transition from Leo to Virgo that's not necessarily talked about a lot in just everyday astrology language. We tend to block it off black and white, like this is Leo and this is Virgo. And there are some astrologers who really honor the hard boundary of zodiac signs, and they'll read Leo completely as Leo and Virgo completely as Virgo. I personally really look at degrees, and specifically I look at different zodiacal systems. I might be one of the few astrologers who looks at multiple systems, because I think there's a larger story being told around the energy and the shifts that take place between the planetary signs. And so you might not be familiar with how one sign transitions into another, but there really is an evolutionary journey of energy from Aries to Pisces and then back into Aries again. And if your planetary placement changes a zodiac sign, it's typically only going to change one, like it's going to go to the one before. Like if you're used to your tropical chart, chances are planetary placements, if they change, would go to the former sign. And that sign is like the energy that leads into the tropical, your tropical sign. And there's this interesting blend of energy. between that. And so it's just a nuanced expression. It's one of these deeper, more complex, nuanced expressions that you really only get into as you study astrology on a deeper level, or you go see a professional astrologer. So don't freak out. Don't feel like this system is completely wrong. It's just a variation on how we read the energy or what's happened, and someone reads boundaries this way, another person reads boundaries that way. But really, there's an evolutionary degree, a unique degree that might fall into the Virgo category of one and might fall into the Leo category of another, but it's like really this blending of both. And so I hope that helps you on your journey. If it does, feel free to leave a comment. I'd love to know. And I hope this kind of takes you deeper. When you get more curious, you kind of want to go deeper into the changes and the shifts, and thinking about the energy a little bit more. So thanks for watching. I appreciate it.